I just got done watching Wonder Woman 84, and I really wish I had a extremely embarrassing, disgusting, awful fanboy to review this movie with. Oh, hey, Jan.
Ah,
Now, before we talk about Wonder Woman 84, it's important to bring some context up.
We need to talk about Wonder Woman 83.
Yeah, we need to get through all the other previous entries in the series before we get to this one. Wonder Woman, though, was okay. I thought it was okay.
Yeah, I think I like it. I like it quite a bit. I think I agree that it has third act syndrome, and I think the villain is a little underbaked. The general guy and then the poison lady are almost like foreshadowing for the tone of this movie. If you look at them, you're kind of like, oh, okay, that's like Patty Jenkins coming through in that first movie a little bit. But I think that first one is pretty good. I think if you're looking at like superhero origin stories, I think it's like in the top 5.
Yeah, no, I'd say probably top 10. And I agree with you as far as the cheesiness, because that's one of the things I really dislike about the first one. Because like the first act of that movie, I just remember little young Diana, terrible actress who's also in the new one. He was going like that shit was trash. It's just so corny, and I don't like shit like that unless it's Raimi Spider-Man. But I think the second act is where it really begins to become something better, and it has some really exceptional action scenes, even though they are still a bit corny, but it's not to the extent of like Mr. Gas or whatever the what's her fucking
Dr. Poison.
Yeah, Dr. Poison, and the guy going like
yeah,
like they're Gary Busey or something.
I think the third act is a little bit better than people say, but it's still like kind of like CGI.
I disagree.
And apparently that was a studio mandate.
So. It was. So that's why I don't blame Patty Jenkins for that. What I do blame her for is a lot of the stuff in Wonder Woman 84. That's my full rhyme. So let's get into that. Jan, what are your general impressions of the movie? Nothing too deep, just what did you think about it overall?
Really weird. I like quite a bit about it, but I also think the execution is really strange. I think there are some things that maybe would have come across as kind of cute in earnest if it had came out in like any other year, but the year that we're currently in. But I think overall, it's just kind of it's a very bizarre experience I had with this movie. It was just like weird, I'd say is my operative word.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page. I did not like this. This was not my thing. I don't like long movies. This was 2.5 hours. It did not need to be 2.5 hours. Did not have a story that was worth 2.5 hours. All of the fears that I had from the first Wonder Woman were kind of realized here, and not even in the same way as that one, but just they took all the cheesiness and extended it and made it so overly prevalent that it just became really annoying. And I just was not a fan of the movie, I guess. It was not good. I do want to say, I think that Chris Pine and Gal Gadot, I think they had some nice chemistry once again. I mean, everything that was good chemistry-wise in the first movie, it's still there, even though the situation's a little strange.
Yeah, well, that'll be in the cons. We'll talk about that.
Some of the action was okay, which is kind of unfortunate to say because I thought some of the action scenes in the first movie were the best part of it. I thought the White House fight was pretty cool. It was okay. The scene where they're on the road and they're fighting, even though that gets really corny, very corny. And the green screen is terrible. That scene's okay too,
and you've just named the 2 action scenes in the movie, basically.
Yeah, something I will say, Pedro Pascal. Hold on. I'm not saying he's good. I'm not saying he was great in this movie, but he committed. He tried.
Yes.
He went for this full Richard Donner, well, closer to Richard Lester. Which we will talk about.
We will talk about
a lot. He went for it. He did something really crazy, and toward the end, he's going like, "Oh," and all this shit. And I'm not saying it worked, but I admired the effort.
I like Gal Gadot in the first. I like her in maybe not Batman v Superman, but every other movie that she's been this character, and I think she's good. She's not like the most skilled or versatile actress, but I think she has like screen presence, and I think that carries it along. Like I think she, commands the screen and is very likable, and I think that Wonder Woman is also not a character that's super complex. She's a pretty simple, straightforward, heroic character, and I think she works for that. I agree about Chris Pine and her having awesome chemistry, and I think their scenes are probably the best in the movie. You're going to disagree with this, I know, but I actually like Kristen Wiig. I thought she was solid. She's not like amazing or anything, but I thought she played the nerdy character, and people are comparing it to like Jim Carrey's Riddler and Jamie Foxx. Those people have not watched those movies recently because she's nowhere near as over the top as those characters are. She is, maybe more over the top than I would have liked, but she is not the stuttering, complete nightmare that Jim Carrey and Jamie Foxx were. She's a little bit more grounded.
Whoa, look who's here. Spidey. How was your morning?
The slow burn of her going bad was kind of interesting, and they more or less got the fact that she and Diana are friends and she goes bad. Like that's the bare bones of the Cheetah character. Like I think you could have done worse than her. I like that the story is so like non-traditional for a superhero movie. I like that it tries something different with this like wish plot. It's kind of weird and it maybe doesn't work, but I like that it's not really a superhero movie for like this whole second act, and then when the superhero sequences start coming in, it's kind of refreshing and you're like, oh yeah, it's like also a superhero movie. Like it's kind of fun. It's weird. This is a con, so I'm again ahead of myself. It's weird that it takes that really generic like wishing well story that like every genre TV show has done an episode, and it makes it 3 hours. Like that's a strange choice, and I have issues with that, but it's refreshing. It's not just villain shows up and Wonder Woman has to fight him. Like it's kind of a little bit more complicated than that. I can appreciate that they went ambitious with the story. I've seen people complain that the scenes are kind of clunky and stilted. I think what Patty Jenkins was trying to do was, instead of filming like a traditional action scene, it seemed like she was stringing together iconic images of Wonder Woman in action, almost like comic book panels, into a scene. So maybe that's not what she was trying to go for, and it's just me feeling that way. But I think if that's what she was going for, I think it was kind of interesting. Like I didn't hate it at all. I thought like the scene that you mentioned in the desert was pretty cool, and I think the White House scene was the highlight of the movie as far as action. And I really liked that I thought they were really creative with her use of the lasso, and I thought the way it moved around was pretty cool, and how it like grabbed bullets and stuff. Like it was cartoony, but it's a magical thing. Like I don't know. It's not like a real item that's supposed to exist. It's a magic item that has magical properties. I had no issue with that. It was kind of cool.
You brought up the action scenes, and I think that's a really interesting concept. If she's like trying to recreate like panels or like embracing that comic bookiness, like sure. But what do you think of? Did you like the mall scene then?
No.
Okay.
I'm specifically talking about the White House scene and the scene in the desert.
Okay,
I think the mall scene is trying to do that too, but I don't think it works there. And for some reason, because I think that has too many cheesy, again negative, but it has too many cheesy moments where it like shows civilians like given really over the top, like extras going like, "Whoa, what the hell's going on?" And like the little girl, which that is a moment that I should have loved, because I eat up cheesy superheroes saving people, stuff like that. But the really cheesy moment with the girl where she winks, like it was so like over the top, and I was just like, okay. I like that it embraces Diana as a pacifist, which is something that I saw a lot of Wonder Woman fans criticize the first movie for, is that this is a character who traditionally uses violence as a last resort when compared to like Superman and Batman. And the first movie has her like killing people in a war zone, and it worked there because she was younger and it was a little, like a war zone where they were holding a town hostage. But I like that she kind of goes out of her way to like not really hurt anybody in the movie, and she's kind of using the lasso to just like not web people up, but kind of the same thing of like, kind of not even really trying to punch them at all, like just trying to like restrain them and stuff. Like that was cool, and it was a different kind of superhero, a different way for a superhero to get through action scenes than we've seen before.
That's an interesting point too, because that's something a lot of people have complaints about, is that she doesn't have the sword and shield, and she's not doing the traditional superhero stuff, and that the lasso looks really stupid. Like a lot of people hate that. And
but that's what Wonder Woman is. My argument is, like that's just what the character is. She's not.
And it kind of goes along with the whole like Richard Donner kind of concept of like he's not killing people. he
doesn't throw a single punch in that first movie.
Yeah.
And maybe that's boring to some people, but I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm fine with that. We have enough violence in the real world as it is. I can take a break from it. And then my last thing, which you won't agree with, but that's okay. And I'm not saying the execution is good, but I'm saying just the idea that the ending isn't just some big CGI fight, that it's her reasoning with someone and getting them to like renounce their villainy by like reminding them of their humanity, I think is a cool idea. Again, I think the execution is a little over the top and cheesy and it doesn't quite work for me, but I just like that idea of like, we're going to end this with the conversation and not just with the good guy and the bad guy hitting each other until one of them passes out.
I agree to an extent as far as like conceptually, I think that would be an interesting way to go. But it was literally preceded by a disgusting, terrible CGI fight with Cheetah that looks terrible.
True, but that fight wasn't as like indulgent as something from like a Zack Snyder movie, and it was over pretty quick.
Okay, but it was still terrible.
Yeah, and that wasn't the main villain. Like that was her on the way to the main villain, and she tried to reason with her first, and it didn't work.
Is that not just the same CGI villain fight that you?
It was not. There weren't like buildings getting knocked over and shit like that. Like it was much smaller.
Like running into like poles or something.
Well, yeah, it's a superhero action scene, but it wasn't like it wasn't like the Avengers fighting Thanos or something. It was.
Yeah, but it was still like a really gross CGI battle that was not pleasing at all.
But it wasn't with like the main villain. Like it wasn't how the movie ended. It was like the appetizer to the main course, and the main course wasn't really an action scene. So I don't know. I see what you're saying, but I don't think it's the same thing. Do you just want to get the Steve and Diana thing out of the way?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. I've seen some people say that it's a little bit of a double standard, that the movie has that homeless guy who tries to like harass Cheetah, and it really vilifies him, which rightfully so. But then there's no kind of moral question raised with the fact that Steve Trevor, his soul possesses a dude, and then he and Diana presumably are intimate, and that dude, his body was used without his consent or permission, and then there's no moral. I think that's a double standard.
What's going on here? What's going on here? What's going on here? Put that down. What's going on here? What are you doing? What are you doing? Can you not talk to me?
Just for the.
What are you doing?
Hey, don't do that.
Don't do that again.
And maybe, I could see the argument of like, I know there's a famous writer named Dwayne McDuffie who once said something along the lines of, if you're really getting upset about consent in a situation that's so removed from reality, then it's not really a discussion worth having. Maybe that's true. I don't know. It made me uncomfortable, and I don't know why. I feel like you could have just dodged it completely and not even why did he need to be in that guy's body? Like, what did that really add to the story? Have him just be resurrected in Chris Pine's body.
Yep. That was something I didn't even really think of it while I was watching it until you brought it up to me, and I'm just like, that's very true. Not only is she having sex with this man without him having any knowledge of this, but she also puts him through all these like hardcore action scenes
where he's getting shot at.
He gets like bruised up by the end. It's like, you're abusing this poor man.
And she's never once like, there's a guy in there. Maybe we should like make you just like stay at home and not do anything until we figure this out, or what happened to him. She's just like, all right, you can come along with me, and and if she's
if she's supposed to be this like Richard Donner Superman-esque persona, then why is she torturing this poor man in his body?
And he's probably wanted by the government now because he stole a plane.
And it's also just so frustrating because sure, you can make the argument of like, well, it's in this like dream world, but you're living in a dream world.
You're living in a fucking dream world.
It's so easy to write it differently that it's just stupid, because all this like fantasy stuff of like making these giant wishes that are so unrealistic and crazy, like all those come to fruition. But why is it so strange that Steve Trevor can come back? Like, if all these other weird ass things can happen.
Yeah.
And especially if you're in this heightened dream world, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you risk having these really
interesting ethical questions when you can easily just dodge it all with one quick rewrite? And on the same lines, the way the wish works is that you give up something when you get your wish granted. And so Diana, I feel like so what she gives up is her powers start to diminish. And I feel like that's a cop-out, and well, not really. I think it's a negative in two ways. One, it feels like a cop-out because I feel like
feels like a Kevin Smith.
Yeah, it feels like a talentless hack. And for some other characters, you see that what they give up is like their humanity. Like Maxwell Lord stops caring about his kid, and Cheetah like starts being kind of not a nice person. And I think with Diana, they probably didn't want to have her give up because they wanted to have her like be herself throughout the movie. So what they do is they give up her powers. So there's two implications there that are strange to me. One, it feels like the thing that she treasures most isn't the fact that she's like a good person. It's that she just likes having powers. That feels like a weird thing that I don't know if they thought about it, but I don't know what that says about her as a person. And B, it's the same superhero loses their powers plot that we've seen in like 5 million movies and TV shows. And I'm so, Daredevil season 3, The Flash has done it like 3 million times. Spider-Man 2, and I like some of those stories, but I'm just sick of seeing that, like you go to a superhero movie to see the hero, do their thing, and to, I don't know. I'm sick of that.
Yeah, you have that in like the Dark Shit Rises and and Superman 2 also. And
it works a lot of the time. It's just when you do it 5 times, in every superhero sequel, it starts to get old. So another con. So I really don't care for Maxwell Lord. I think commenting on how obsessed with like quick gratification and how selfish America and like the world in a ways has become is certainly an interesting effort. And I think Maxwell Lord is kind of a cool personification of that. But I feel like, for one, he's literally Ross Webster from Superman 3, played by Donald Trump. So that's weird. And the Trump allegory is so thin that it kind of drives me insane. Like, he literally looks exactly like Trump. He literally does, like, the speech is very, like, the voice he's doing is very similar to Trump, and the kind of like finger pointing and all that. If you had just had him be like an oil tycoon and maybe he had a little bit of that, but not as over the top, it wouldn't have bothered me. But it's so like, just the subtlety is like a hammer hitting you in the face. And I don't know, I think that I would have liked a little bit more subtlety with that commentary.
Especially if you're creating this dream world where you're dream world where you're trying to escape like reality that sucks. It's like, do we really need to be reminded of all the
shit? Yeah.
Like, it's like Kingsman 2 did the exact same thing, where they had a clear Trump president who gets killed and then they have a woman come in. Mm-hmm. It's like, and I'm okay with some of this more like provocative, I don't know if that's the right word, but this more like overt cinema, like Spike Lee likes to do that a lot. But it's like, this is a superhero movie, man. And the actual ending where there's the whole message of like, oh yeah, we need to like come together and as a society. It's like, okay, not only is Gal Gadot literally looking into the camera like, we need to come together as a society.
When she said, the way they shot that, when she said, I'm not talking to him, I'm talking to you.
I know!
That
like, that like got on my nerves. Like, that got under my skin. And then they're showing like footage that's eerily similar to like stuff that's happened this year. I'm just like, oh my God. It's like, I get it. This is a superhero movie. Like, do we need, like, I get like superheroes using this platform and being like, oh, but Jesus.
Be a little more subtle about it. I like Pedro Pascal a lot. I think he's a really good actor. I know this is the most unoriginal hack opinion to have on the internet. I like him a lot in The Mandalorian. I think he's a good actor. His performance did not work for me in this movie. He was really over the top. And I think the character they're trying to play is this sort of maybe like decent, but kind of scummy guy who slowly turns into a megalomaniac. And then at the end has to be reminded of the fact that he has a son and that, he started from like maybe a good place. I think that's an interesting journey to have. I can't take it seriously when he's playing him like he's in a Joel Schumacher Batman movie. He's not really, he is a villain, but he's not really a villain. And I think, if he'd given a more nuanced performance, I would have maybe enjoyed it more. But he's so like over the top and cartoony from the word jump that I just had a hard time. Like the scene where he goes to save this kid at the end, he turns into a completely different character, and I could not take it seriously. Like, it was so cheesy and unearned, and he's just like all of a sudden a different person, and he's acting like an actual human being at the end. And I don't know, it didn't work for me.
So one thing I'll ask you about that, Ben, is because clearly she's going for the whole Richard Donner or maybe Richard Lester, intentionally or not, feel for this movie. So what is it that makes this not work in this movie?
I feel like there's entertaining camp, and then there's just camp that I don't know, for whatever reason he wasn't, like, I was just kind of embarrassed whenever he was on screen. Like, it seemed like an actor trying to do that and not quite pulling it off. I think that's one. And two, I feel like Lex Luthor in the original Superman is a really cheesy villain, but they don't try to like have him all of a sudden turn into a good person at the end who like cares about a kid. He's a bad guy all the way through, and he's kind of a one-dimensional character, and he's just like, the cartoon villain to have Superman fight, where I feel like having this character have such a, redeeming end even though he's been a cartoon the whole time. Like it's just I don't know. I think if you didn't have that scene with him at the end with his kid, I would not have maybe had as much of a problem with him. But when he just all of a sudden is like, oh, I'm good now, you know, I love my son, like I could not take it seriously.
Yeah, and like I said before, I admired the effort. I don't think it works either. And especially when you're trying to bring up these like big politically relevant themes, and then you're like, while Gal Gadot is delivering it into the camera, I'm talking to you.
Imagine there's no heaven.
We keep cutting between her and this powerful political rant to him going like, woo!
Yeah.
I'm just like, what?
Yeah, it didn't work for me.
Yeah, I don't hate Kristen Wiig. I thought I was gonna hate her more in this, but I think what I just hated most is that it's just how reminiscent she is of like previous villains.
And it's all the Syndrome, the guy from Iron Man 3, Electro, Catwoman from Batman Returns. It's just like this character has been done.
Yeah, and we knew
times.
it was gonna be like this since we saw like the set photos. It's like, oh, they're doing that shit again.
No.
I'm just tired, and I don't think Kristen Wiig gives a bad performance. I actually think her swagger that she brings to it, I think it's kind of cool. I mean, she's
like, I think when she shows up to save Maxwell Lord at the White House, like you see them like the two villains together, like that was kind of a cool moment. Like I was like, all right,
in her extremely edgy jacket with like all this. Oh my god,
the cheetah stuff on her. Well, the fact that she had like cheetah shit in her office made me roll my eyes a little bit. Like I'm like, oh Jesus Christ. I think Cheetah is just an inherently hard character to translate to live action. I think she would have looked silly. I think it hurts that Cats had to come out right around this. So everyone's like, I think if Cats didn't come out, I think it wouldn't have been, I mean, it would have still looked silly, but I don't think you wouldn't have immediately been like, oh my God, that's ridiculous. B, it's weird that I feel like it looks like they did reshoots or something, because when you see her far away and she's fighting, she looks different. But then when you have the close-ups on her face, like it looks like she's barely transformed at all.
Yeah, that close-up was horrendous.
I didn't think it looked horrible. It was just weird that she didn't look like, she looked kind of just like Kristen Wiig with like eye paint on. And I'm like, what? I thought she was Cheetah.
She looked like a villain you would see like costume level, like the 60s Star Trek show.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not a positive. That's very negative. It looks so corny. And like, I guess that could go along with the corny vibe of the whole movie, but I don't know.
I think if the whole movie worked and that was the one negative, was that she looked a little silly, I wouldn't care. It would not hurt it at all for me. But this movie is so weird that it was just another thing that was like, okay, what the is that? So this movie is literally Superman 3. The opening with the mall heist and like all the shit that happens before that is literally the first scene of Superman 3, but like slightly less cheesy. I'm talking about like Richard Pryor like walking down the street and like telephone booths falling over and like a blind man using a paint machine instead of his dog, and like penguins on fire and all this kind of crazy shit. The opening of this movie is only like 10% more serious than that. It's so bizarre. It's not even like, again, it's not necessarily Richard Donner. It's like Richard Lester. Like it has that weird campy like comedy where like the Richard Donner movies are campy by today's standards, but I think at the time they actually took the material pretty seriously and kind of exist in a semi-realistic world. You know, by this, you know, not today, but like back then. So I don't know. It was a very strange opening. And immediately I was just like, you know, I was thinking, and the plot, like the fact that this oil guy is trying to monopolize the oil industry is this exact same thing as the villain of Superman 3, who's a plot about a corporate tycoon trying to monopolize the oil industry. The fact that the villain's redeemed at the end is the same thing. The
whole thing just felt kind of dated to me. Even like the CGI, and maybe it's intentionally supposed to be a little wonkier to like, you know, feel more authentic, but I don't know, because the thing that's so jarring is that everything else that Wonder Woman's been in has been a little more grounded, at least like in the world they've established. Like there's a little more realism I know there's Steppenwolf coming from the clouds, but everything feels more like it isn't a movie. Like it feels more grounded, like especially the first Wonder Woman when she's in like no man's land. Like it's dramatic when she just like goes over and is just going like that's not realistic, but it feels like gritty and grounded. And this just feels like fluff. and it feels like it's a movie.
Yeah, it
feels
does.
like we're on a movie set, and
Yeah.
it's really strange to go from the first Wonder Woman to this, and I do feel like that might be a big part of the disconnect we're seeing, as like
With
why
the audiences.
people don't like it.
Yeah.
It's so different from other comic book movies, and not in a good way.
Well, it feels. I think what happened is the first one was made when Zack Snyder was still the King of the Hill. So I think when he was Hank Hill, when he was still in charge of
He was still in the propane business.
all those DC movies were kind of trying to have a similar flavor to his kind of like cinematography. So I think that first one feels a little bit more of that canon where it's kind of more gray and brown looking, and it's a little bit more kind of has that Zack Snyder-y look, even though it's different tonally than his movies are. Where this one feels like Patty Jenkins just got to do whatever she wanted from the word jump. So I think, I think that, the villains is, I think that was a big part of where the Patty Jenkins-ness of it kind of shined through with the really hammy villains in the first movie. So I don't know. It's just very strange.
All right. So as we wrap up our thoughts here, we're just going to go through where this film falls as far as our overall DCEU rankings. So Jen, go ahead.
My 9th is Suicide Squad. Then 8 is Justice League. Then 7 is Batman v Superman, which I hate, but more for as much for like fanboy reasons as for it being a bad movie. My number 6 is Birds of Prey. 5 is Man of Steel. 4 is Wonder Woman 1984. 3 Aquaman. 2 the original Wonder Woman, and the number 1 Shazam. And I'd like to again clarify, the only movies I actually like on this list are the first 2. Everything else I will probably never watch again. So take that as you will.
My list is pretty different.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, I start with Suicide Squad because I have a brain.
Horrible. Horrible.
It's horrible.
Oh, the movie was fucking horrible.
Number 8 is Justice League, because the Snyder Cut is what it's all about. This is trash. Number 7 is Wonder Woman 84. I know. I did not like it. Number 6 is Aquaman.
Okay, I have a question for you. So you love like your visuals. Aquaman is such a colorful movie with so much like comic book shit. How is that not like more appealing to you?
It's too long.
It is very long.
Number 5, Birds of Prey. Number 4, Batman v Superman. Number 3, Man of Steel. Number 2, Wonder Woman, and then number 1, of course.
So our top 2 and our bottom 2 are the same.
Yeah, but everything else is like, what the f***? And to clarify, I enjoy the first 4 movies on my list. That includes Batman v Superman. Shut up. I like it. It's not good. I like it. Shut up.
So my final statement is going to be that Matt Reeves' Batman movie, which I'm very excited for, does not have to work very hard to be easily the second best, or even the third best of these movies. And that's all I'll say.
Yeah, I'm on the same page, but the Snyder Cut will be the best one. So, come on, you're living in
better than Shazam?
Oh yeah, you're living in a fucking dream world.
I'm like, that's cool, but you're living in a fucking dream world, okay? So